Welcome into episode 23 of Plead Your Case for the 2026 spring semester. We're taking it a little bit lighter today, kicking it off with Major League Baseball and opening week.
They seem like a really fun team to follow along with, especially
before heading over to the ice to start winding down on the National Hockey League season and head into the playoffs.
You know, I thought that more of the Western Conference teams going into this season were going to have a lot better.
So sit back, relax, it's time to plead your case.
Welcome into Plead Your Case, Wadesburg Community Television's national sports debate show, now expanding outside the realm of the Power 4 sports. All our panelists will expand into the depths of professional sports while speaking on the newest sports topics each week. We're also bringing new mini-segments like I Got Something to Say, State of the Union, Pick 'em Pools, while even bringing back a popular mini-segment, the 5 and 5. Here at PYC, we plan to create debates, create memories, and the best takes possible for you, the viewer. No one is safe. Every opinion, every angle will be challenged and discussed to further detail. So sit back, relax. It's now time to plead your case.
Welcome back into Plead Your Case, and spring training is finally over, so it's time for the Major League Baseball season. Paul Sembauer joins me on the desk to break down the opening week of play. Baseball kicked off last Wednesday night with the Giants and the Yankees. Most teams have only played about 4 or 5 games. So, Paul, through just under a week of play, what teams have really stood out to you? And we'll kind of bounce back and forth over what we've seen so far this season.
Yeah, a little bit of a quiet team that I've enjoyed watching is the Angels. They seem like a really fun team to follow along with, and especially Mike Trout. The guy looks awesome right now. 2 home runs, batting a .353. He's looking like he's young again, you know? And I still will stand by this to this day. If Mike Trout could go back in time and have a completely healthy career, he'd be one of the best baseball players of all time. And being a big Mike Trout fan, I have his jersey. I think that this is a really good sign in his career, and I'm really excited to see where the Angels go. And if they keep up this level of play, I know that they're 2-3, but if they bounce back, you know, we're only 5 games in. I see this team as possibly making the playoffs.
Yeah, and I'm going to stick right there with you in the AL West. Not the Angels. It is the Seattle Mariners. This is a team that had Cal Raleigh, who was closing in on an MVP-level season after hitting 60 home runs last season. But I don't want to talk about Cal Raleigh, mainly because he's done pretty much nothing besides last night. He had a walk-off single, but besides that, he's 1 for 20 on the season. What I really want to talk about is this Mariners pitching staff. Logan Gilbert, George Kirby, Luis Castillo, Emerson Hancock. Just a tremendous pitching staff, and they don't even have Bryce Miller yet back, who had a tremendous postseason for the Mariners. They bring in Brendan Donovan. He's batting .444 through just a couple of games, has a home run and 4 RBIs. So this is a team that should make another deep postseason run. They went to Game 7 against the Blue Jays in the American League Central, and they've just had a tremendous season last year overall. So I'm super excited to watch them play. They have Cal Raleigh, Julio Rodriguez. They made improvements to the offense. The only loss they had was Eugenio Suarez, but this is a team to watch, and so far they've been fun to watch, and especially that Guardian series where we saw a historic moment. Chase DeLauter hit 3 home runs 3 days straight. He was the first player to do that since Trevor Story almost 10 years ago. So let's just talk about this rookie class, because it hasn't just been Chase DeLauter. You can hit on Chase DeLauter because I know you absolutely love him, so we'll start there.
Well, I wouldn't say I absolutely love him, but he does stand out to me among this rookie class. The guy, 4 home runs through 21 ABs and 6 hits. He's batting .286. That's great rookie numbers, especially for someone that has to get used to a different level of pitching up from AAA. Same thing goes with Kevin McGonigal. Doesn't have any home runs, but he's batting .357 for the Tigers. These two are great additions, and if they develop their careers and stay healthy, they're going to have great careers and be helpful for the team. Definitely another great bat for the Cleveland Guardians other than Jose Ramirez, because I think with the Guardians, Jose Ramirez is their only notable bat, but adding another bat like this to their lineup makes them even more of a competitor.
Yeah, and some other rookies, you can say, stepping into Major League Baseball from NPB Baseball, that's Munetaka Murakami, who's up to 3 home runs of his own. The White Sox have struggled. They sit at the bottom of the American League Central at 1-3, but Murakami's been really fun to watch. And then over on the Blue Jays side of things, Kazuma Okamoto, he just hit his second home run last night. And the Blue Jays are now 3-1. They haven't had a World Series slump. They've looked tremendous, both at the plate. George Springer up to 2 home runs as well. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. has been one of the quieter hitters for that team through just 4 games, but the pitching staff has looked awesome as well. Eric Lauer threw 6 beautiful innings the other night. So besides that, some other teams have done well, notably the National League East. 4 teams sit at 3-1. The lone team that's not, a surprising one, the Philadelphia Phillies. I know it's early, 4 games in. You think the Phillies are going to end up being the worst in the division? I know I don't. Do you think the Mets or the Braves are going to end at the top? What are your thoughts there, Paul?
The Braves, after that opening series, watching them with the Pirates, are definitely a very good team. But the Phillies, they've struggled. Not just the Phillies, but majority of the players on the Phillies were on that WBC team. Kyle Schwarber, Bryce Harper. And what I've seen, they're batting sub 200 alongside the rest of the WBC team. They have been struggling a lot. Like I said, sub 200. Paul Skeens, even though has 1 game, his ERA is really high, it's going to cut him down, but he struggled in game 1. And that's what's really stood out to me about this Philadelphia squad. It seems every year they get to that same level, that NLCS, NLDS, runner-up in the World Series, but they just can't grab it. It seems like they're quote-unquote cursed. But do I think that they're going to stay at the bottom forever? No. The Marlins, they're starting off hot, but it's been the Marlins. I mean, Owen Casey, great player, just hit that walk-off home run the other night. But I do see the Marlins as slowing up. Maybe the Phillies 3rd place this season.
Yeah, I know for me, looking at the National League East, especially after watching the Mets play the Pirates, that new look Mets offense looked strong. Bringing Bo Bichette in to play third base, I know he's not the best third baseman, but that bat is tremendous. He bats over 300 every season, will get you over 200 hits if he stays healthy. So Bo Bichette, and then Luis Robert Jr., he had a tremendous series against the Pirates this past weekend. If he can play at an all-star level for the Mets, we talk about the curse of the Mets and how they can never seem to get over the hump. But this is really a team that can make a World Series push. But moving on to a little bit of a different subject, 2026, the first season of the new automated ball strike system. So we're just 4 games into the season. You've seen it. Have you liked the change? Do you think it's too long? What are your thoughts?
I like ABS, but there's definitely a couple changes that need adjusted because some of these players are getting essentially, pushed down and getting their at-bats, kind of hurt because they're getting called strikes that are 0.3 inches, decimal places of inches that are catching that corner of the strike zone. That's ridiculous. I mean, come on. It doesn't get any closer than that, but why should they have to be penalized in big, notable at-bats? And I feel like the umpire that's been treated the worst from this is C.B. Buckner, and it shows that something's got to happen with that guy. He's making calls that are really outside the zone, and you saw that in that Red Sox-Red series. It was utter. It was just bad.
I think that's my favorite part about ABS. It's not the fact that the calls are actually correct now. It's the fan reactions, because after C.B. Buckner got those 2 calls back, it was 40,000 people up on their feet, screaming, yelling, celebrating over this guy missing a call. So I think the system overall is a net positive. Can there be some things cleaned up? I think it's very interesting. You look at the roster sheets, there's a ton of hitters that have magically shrunk 2 inches. I think that's something that should probably be looked at, making sure the zones are accurate. But my last question, Paul, is we're both Pirates fans. We're sitting at 1-3. Obviously, tons of hope coming into this season. We kind of know what needs to change, but do you think the Pirates get back on track? We have 2 more games against the Reds, or they have 2 more games against the Reds. Then it's the home opener. So do the Pirates get back on track?
I think the Pirates are going to be fine. At the end of the day, they have room to make the adjustments they need, especially with Connor Griffin. Jared Triolo looked ugly to say in that game against the Reds. He just wasn't swinging the bat right. And me personally, I've never liked Jared Triolo, so I wouldn't be opposed to Connor Griffin coming up and taking his spot. But another player that's surprisingly doing very bad is Marcell Ozuna, our designated hitter, which you really can't move the designated hitter spot from Marcell Ozuna. He's batting .083, one hit through 12 at-bats. I expected a lot more from this team. I feel like pitching has kind of been on a downside as well, but the bats, the two top guys have been Ryan O'Hearn and Brandon Lau. If you want to beat the Pittsburgh Pirates, just walk Brandon Lau and Ryan O'Hearn. I mean, don't get me started on Brandon Lau because I'll just hype him up to the max. He's looked awesome, but if you want to beat the Pittsburgh Pirates, that's how you do it. But something has to change with that left side of the infield. I like Nick Gonzalez. He's been doing a lot better. But Jared Truillo, the guy's got to go. And not to say Henry Davis as well. Throwing out Ellie De La Cruz like that, he deserves that catcher position, so keep him there.
Yeah, so for the Pirates, they've struggled to start the season, and I'm a hopeless romantic when it comes to them. So I hope they get back on track. I think they will. But that's all the time we got here for the baseball segment here on Plead Your Case. When we come back, Stone Mangus and Brayden King will break down your NHL.
Well, the push for the NHL playoffs is on. I'm Stone Mangus alongside Brayden King, and today we're going to be going over the push for the playoffs in a race that, Brayden, I can't remember being ever as tight as it is this year, specifically with the Eastern Conference.
Oh, it's very, very close right now, and there's a lot of teams that are right on the bubble, right? And the thing about most of these playoff teams is they're all great. All of these teams, especially out of the Eastern Conference, can go to the second round, can go further than that. So it's going to be really, really tight, and I'm really excited to see how it's going to end up.
I think one of the things when you look at with their remaining schedules is a lot of these teams are playing each other. And that is the reason why the Islanders, Blue Jackets, and Bruins, the top three teams with the hardest remaining schedules of the year, and because they play each other at least once to finish off the season, is one of the big reasons why they have the harder schedules to finish out the year.
Yeah, I'm very concerned for a bunch of NHL teams, and especially in that Eastern Conference going forward. I mean, the Blue Jackets right now, they have a couple losses in a row. They're playing Carolina twice and Detroit, Buffalo once more. They play Boston as well just to end the season, right? So most of these squads have to deal with these, playing everybody in the middle of that pack. So every point is important right now.
As it sits right now in the Atlantic Division, the Lightning, Sabres, and the Canadiens are the three teams that are in the playoffs. With the Metropolitan Division, the Hurricanes sit atop with the Penguins and the Islanders close behind. And then the two wild card teams that are vying for playoff positioning are the Boston Bruins and the Columbus Blue Jackets. Brayden, out of the teams that aren't in the playoffs, when you look in the Eastern Conference, the Senators, Red Wings, Flyers, and the Capitals sneaking in there, which of these teams do you think has the best opportunity to jump into one of those two wildcard spots?
Now, I think the Caps are out. Just full stop. I don't believe that they're going to make it in. They're not even close enough. They're 5 points out, so they have a really good shot, but just going forward with their schedule, I just don't believe that they'll make it in. Philadelphia is 8-1-1 in their last 10 games. They've won 3 straight games. And if you look going forward, they've got a couple games against Detroit. They play the Islanders, but it's at home, and they have to deal with the Boston, Carolina, Montreal of the world. But they're probably the hottest team going into this final playoff push. I think they can possibly squeak in. It's going to be close, though.
I understand that they're coming in hot, but looking at 4 of those final 6 games, Boston, Carolina, and Montreal, I just don't see them beating 2 of those 3 teams to get 4 points. I don't see them beating any of those 3 teams, to be quite honest with you, even though they are coming in hot. I'm really looking at the Detroit Red Wings. And I know that they're playing the Penguins tonight, and they are going to lose. I know that the Penguins are going to win this game in Pittsburgh. But looking at Detroit, they have the 13th hardest schedule, which is behind the Penguins, the second easiest schedule out of these teams that you're looking at, this coagulation of teams in the Eastern Conference. They play Pittsburgh, they play Philadelphia twice, so that's a huge opportunity to get 4 points ahead of the Flyers. The New York Rangers, who are at the bottom of the Eastern Conference. The Minnesota Wild, they're at the top of
They're great.
the West, which
They're
is
really, really
also
good.
close in a different way. They've got Columbus, which will be a big game, and then the Devils, Panthers, and Lightning to finish out the season. So I'll be looking at the Red Wings in this. And then to talk about the Western Conference a little bit, it's tight, but if you take off 10 points from what the Eastern Conference has, these teams that are vying for positioning, they're sitting at around 77, 76, 75 points.
Which is pretty disappointing, honestly. You know, I thought that more of the Western Conference teams going into this season were going to have a lot better. You knew the top guys like Colorado, Dallas, and Minnesota, especially when Minnesota picked up Quinn Hughes in that massive trade back in December. It was a huge deal that really propelled them into that third-place spot that they're in right now in the Central. The Pacific Division fell off a cliff over the last month, and going further with that, it's just been a struggle for the West.
Any of the teams in the Eastern Conference that we have talked about that have a chance to get in the playoffs, even teams like Washington and Philadelphia, who are at the bottom of the playoff race, would be in a playoff spot in the Western Conference. Just to give you an idea, Utah and Nashville are the two wildcard teams. They have 82 and 77 points. They wouldn't be even close to getting a wild card spot.
And Nashville is awful. I'll just throw that out off the front. Nashville's a horrible team. I mean, they've lost 3 straight games in a row. They've got to play the Sharks, the Ducks, and the Kings twice to end the season. You know, the only way that they don't make it in is if these squads like Seattle or LA finally just find a way to squeak through. The Predators are not a good hockey team, and if they do get in the playoffs, they got the opportunity to deal with Colorado, and they'll get smoked immediately.
And it's really unfortunate that you're not going to have a lot of these Eastern Conference teams, which, as you mentioned to kick off this segment, are really solid hockey teams. The team that had the most points to miss a playoffs was a couple years ago. It was the Boston Bruins with 96 points. That record is going to be broken this year.
Absolutely. I mean, going further along the line, you could really see it's going to be close to get to 96. I'll be honest with you. There's 8 games left on the schedule for most of these teams. I know the Sharks have 10 remaining going on, but Ottawa, Detroit, Philadelphia, Columbus, like all these teams could at least get to 97, 98 points, and they'll miss a playoff spot. It's pretty disappointing, honestly, but the other thing is there is so much parity in the NHL. And I think that and all these even teams that are really, really close to each other, it's really good for the league, but it's also pretty disappointing for the squads. They had a very successful year, but won't make it in.
So the Pittsburgh Penguins, to kind of change gears a little bit and talk about them, they are sitting at number 2 in the Metropolitan Division. They have an opportunity to play the Islanders or the Blue Jackets if they sit at that number 2 spot with home ice advantage as it stands right now. I personally think that the Penguins will be better off playing against the New York Islanders than the Columbus Blue Jackets. What do you think?
Not the Islanders. Not the Islanders. I mean, that is just way too much trauma from the early 2020s trying to play New York again. Any New York team at this point. I'd rather play my little brother in the Columbus Blue Jackets because they're an absolute fraud of a hockey team. We stole their best player, Igor Chinikov. Well, maybe not their best, but he absolutely starred for the Penguins over the last couple of months in the big trade that we picked him up for. Looking back over the history of the two teams when they play against each other in the playoffs, Columbus lost in 6 games in 2014 and then in 5 in 2017. That Columbus team in 2017, by the way, finished with like 110 points. They had 50 wins. They were going to be one of the best teams in hockey. They ran into Pittsburgh and were absolutely smoked. The Penguins always have the Blue Jackets number. I would much rather play against them in the first round.
Although as of late, it seems like the Penguins have struggled a little bit against Columbus. So that is why I'm going against the Islanders for my pick in the team that I would rather play in the playoffs, because it is time to exercise these demons from New York. You know, you have these songs about New York, New York, New York, Frank Sinatra. No, absolutely not. It's time for Wiz Khalifa and Mac Miller to reign supreme over Frank Sinatra and all this. It's time to win against one of these New York teams. So now, Brayden, give me your predictions on which of these teams from the Eastern Conference will make the playoffs and which of these teams will miss the playoffs.
Well, obviously Pittsburgh, I believe, is going to make it. They're one of the bubble teams, which is kind of funny to say as being a second team in a division that they're a bubble squad, but they are. Going forward, looking at their schedule, they kind of have a couple favorable teams in the next couple of weeks before they run into a squad like Tampa, and Florida has really given them fits over the past couple of years. But further along for the rest of the schedule for the Penguins, it's kind of smooth sailing. Other teams, though, not so much, not even close. Columbus is a really, really tough ride. They've got 2 games in a row against the Carolina Hurricanes in a home-and-home set. They play Detroit. They've got to deal with the Sabres again. The Islanders have Philly as well. And Philly, I mentioned that they have 2 games against the Red Wings. And Ottawa is another squad. They have to play Carolina and Minnesota in a 3-day window, 2 games in a row. That's going to be really, really tough. And these points, they mean so much right now. So my prediction, personally, I'm going Pittsburgh as the number 2 seed. I've got the Blue Jackets as the 3rd because I would rather play Columbus. The Islanders, I think, will stay in a wild card spot and be the final spot, and everyone else will fall out.
So I agree with you. I think that the Blue Jackets are going to make the playoffs. I said that I would rather play the Islanders. I didn't say that they would make the playoffs, but I think that the Blue Jackets will stay in the 3 spot. I have the Islanders missing totally, and I actually have Detroit filling in that second wild card spot.
Do you feel that because of the game last night, did that change your opinion at all? Because that 8-3 loss was massive, a huge loss for the squad.
Slightly. I think it says more about the Penguins than it does about the Islanders, though. So I mean,
They had their starting goaltender in, and he let in 7.
He did. So, yeah, he did not. Sorokin did not play great, but it's going to be really interesting to see how this playoff race shapes out the last 2.5 weeks of the season. And we are going to have all of the coverage for you right here on Plead Your Case. So thank you for tuning into today's episode. Stay tuned for more WCTV content on our YouTube page. Have a great day.